Every once in a while, a pump so big, so extra large appears, it leaves the world shaking, trembling, and even dripping. And I fear we're on the verge of something like that in the markets. Very likely to actually be happening this month. So in the last few hours, we've actually seen the odds of a September rate cut actually spike to near 100% because US unemployment numbers surpass job openings. This hasn't happened in nearly 5 years, and it shows that the labor market is weak. It shows that a rate cut in September is necessary. It shows that a pump is potentially coming bigger than people thought, potentially even extra large, and I think that really is going to be the case. Specifically as well, there's so many things showing us now that altcoins are by far the closest they've been to an explosion, more similar to the 2017 altcoin cycle, which I was a part of. It was actually insane. Alts did insanely well. 2021 alts did okay. But honestly, in 2021, alts, they did not pump percentage-wise as much as they did in 2017, partially because, it took so much more capital to move the market in 2021 than it did in 2017. But compared to this bull market, this altcoin bull market, 2021 was insanely good, right? All of that to say is alts have done nothing. But as you can see, just looking at this chart, which is actually altcoins paired with NVIDIA, potentially leading altcoins, it shows us that right now we're on the verge of a lot of capital rotation, even from money, capital outside of crypto, tech into altcoins. I think there's a big overlap, honestly, with people that are invested in tech and for example, NVIDIA, a lot of the top performing stocks, which again are tech stocks. There's a big overlap with that and crypto. There's a big demographic that's shared between those two things. And if you don't like that, take a look at this, the total 2 chart. This is a monthly candle close that Mustache on X highlights. And 90% of people, and this is to me probably the biggest thing, 90% of people are bearish right now. I would say probably even more than that. It's actually kind of insane. Even people that are like bullish are sentimentally like not super bullish. Maybe they're bullish in their thesis and they think, okay, things are probably gonna go up, but they just feel very beaten down. I think that's the common consensus here. And I see it in my comments. I see it from comments, people like flipping out, being like, oh, it should have pumped by now. And then there are other people that'll be like, okay, I was expecting it, I'm gonna keep holding on, but they're optimistic, but they're still sentimentally basically destroyed. And I can tell you from experience, for me as well, that's exactly what happens with sentiment before we actually do go up. I've said this a million times. It's so true. You don't get the beginning of an alt season. You don't get a massive breakout in altcoins when everybody's expecting it. You simply don't. Without me even explaining further, I'm sure you could understand why. But if I did briefly explain, if everybody was so positive that the market was going to go up, it just probably wouldn't, right? I mean, it takes a certain, probably for reasons I don't really have to explain, but it takes a certain level of depression and giving up before the market really does switch into these crazy bull runs where people can make a lot of money. And then people FOMO in maybe halfway through, and you can still make money if you do that, but you just have less time and you can basically get less gains, but you can still make a good amount of money. Being in from the beginning, though, is a lot harder. But in my opinion, on a lot of these altcoins, it's still crazy to me, but I truly believe we're still basically at the beginning of these price levels. Most of these top alts have not hit new all-time highs. But keep in mind, from now until the time where alts pump all the way and top out, it could be 2 months. It could be 3 months, meaning from these lows to where like alts have really not done well and we're still very far off all-time highs, to the point where like it's all-time highs, top is in, so much money could have been made. This is, in my opinion, and also historically it's been the case, it happens in a very, very, very small amount of time. So if a 4-year cycle is still what crypto is going with, let's say there is a 5 to 6 month window, or even less, 2 to 3 month window, where you can literally just go all in on alts, make a ton of gains and get out and benefit the most. And those other, 3.5 years, 3 3/4 years, you basically could maybe stay out of the market and you made all of your profit in like, again, a 3, 4, 5, 6 month window. Historically, that's really been the case as well. Bitcoin, its biggest moves are concentrated in very small amounts of times, but that's even more true with altcoins. Altcoins, you really do not need to be exposed in them, for years and years. If you just simply follow the, at this point, pretty tested rule of wait for Bitcoin to break out, and then once Ethereum starts showing signs that it's actually leading, which it is doing right now, which I'm very excited about as well, then you can kind of position yourself from there. So if you're watching this video right now at the beginning of September 2025, somehow, I personally think that there's still a lot of opportunity in alts, considering as well, alts have just not done well. But I think altcoins are going to experience very big gains in a very short amount of time. If you go into a coma right now and you don't wake up till Christmas, you could have potentially missed out on all of it. The breakout, the fake out, and the mummy makeout. And that's just no good. You don't want to miss out on that. The uptrend on altcoins has started, according to Michael on X, for the first time in 3 years. What he's saying is that's not going to stop in 3 months. I think it could. I think a couple months after these alts really start picking up, as I just said, I think it could actually start, or you could miss out, and it could stop in just a couple of months if this chart just goes parabolic, which very often it does. This is the entire altcoin market. We see something like that. That's right there, $4.5 trillion US is what that pump looks like. Which again, if you look on the side of my screen and you see this gigantic one, this one doesn't even look that big. But that's like $3 trillion almost added onto this market. That's massive. That would be, 10, 20, 30, 40x for some of your altcoins. That's a lot of money that can be made. Say you put $1,000 in right now, you get a 40x on that. $40,000, right? That's insane. You put 10,000, you get a 40x, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think that's insane, but also true. And the Ethereum Bitcoin pairing monthly MACD has actually just also printed a bullish cross for the first time in about 5 years. This is Ethereum. This is big because if you want the crypto market to move instead of just Bitcoin, which it has been pretty much just Bitcoin with a few alts here and there, like XRP pumped kind of because their lawsuit ended and everything. But even still, I think XRP might have hit new all-time highs. I'm not sure. If it did, barely. And if it didn't, it almost did. It was like right around those previous all-time highs from like 5 or 6 years ago, or actually from back in like the 2018, 2019 cycle. But ETH is giving us those signals again. And this is not what you want to ignore right here. Ethereum as well is disappearing from exchanges. I think that ignoring Ethereum here is just not good. However, there's a different story also happening, and that's Bitcoin. Paired against gold here, you see this rising or ascending triangle, and you can see this as well here, Bitcoin gold. This has been building for years, and this brings up the question as well, is looking at Bitcoin paired to USD actually wrong? Should we be looking as well at Bitcoin paired with gold? Likely, I think. We're seeing gold surge. Gold is like pumping like crazy. Why? I mean, the easy answer is because the US dollar is losing value. Gold is not really pumping that much. More so, what's happening is the US dollar is plummeting in value. The US dollar is a Ponzi scheme. The US dollar is literally worthless, or 99% less valuable than it was 100 years ago. It's worth something, but every year that goes by, it's becoming more and more worthless. And I'm going to make the prediction, this might sound kind of crazy, just kidding, it's actually not crazy. The US dollar will be worthless eventually. You could be saying, well, of course, yeah, when the sun explodes, it'll be worthless. No, I think it'll be worthless even sooner than the sun exploding. Within the next 1 to 2 decades is my crazy prediction. I think the US dollar will lose. Well, actually, if we're just basing it on history, the US dollar is likely to lose another 99% of its value in the next couple decades anyway. So, I mean, look how much value the US dollar lost in the past 5 years. Remember when McChickens were like $1? Now like a McChicken is like $3, $4, $5 or something insane, right? This is McDonald's we're talking about. We can't even get cheap McChickens anymore. Are you crazy? However, if you had Bitcoin in 2020 and you paid for that McChicken with Bitcoin, and now you pay for that same chicken in Bitcoin now, the McChicken actually got cheaper. So what's really happening here is, obviously Bitcoin, gold, are they going up? More so, the dollar is going down. Fiat currencies around the world are going down. Every fiat currency is losing value. Why? Because they're not backed by anything. So, and I take this is actually really a good advice for people that might be watching that don't like Bitcoin or, don't have any and don't think there's a reason. It doesn't matter if you like Bitcoin or not. You're going to be buying it because you'll have no choice. Not because people will force you to, but because if you want to have any value with your capital, if you want your work that you work every day for a paycheck, if you want that value that you're receiving via, US dollars to have any value, you're not going to keep it in US dollars. You should have stopped keeping it in US dollars a couple of years ago. I mean, realistically, if you would have understood, which not many people did, myself included, I didn't understand this. But if I knew about Bitcoin in 2010, I would have put all my money into it. So would every single person watching. If you wouldn't, you're insane. You'd be a billionaire right now with a couple bucks if you would have bought Bitcoin back in 2010. Of course, you would have done that. But we're also seeing that Bitcoin has just broken out of a basically 3-week downtrending channel. We could see Bitcoin make a big move to the upside here as well. We see a falling wedge on Bitcoin shorter time frames. And historically, Bitcoin finds a low actually this month in September of the post-halving year, which is this year, and then bounces off into the market cycle top that occurs in Q4. Now, this cycle has been delayed. I think the cycle has been different. I mean, it fundamentally has, with hitting new all-time highs before the halving, which had never happened before up until last year. Maybe it's pushed out a little bit. Maybe we hit a top at the end of this year, or maybe we hit a top in January, in February. One thing that I've been talking about, and I think is just a very likely scenario, is that just like Bitcoin, and especially the altcoin market, has not been as bullish, like the bull market has not been as bullish as it has been in the past. Maybe the bear markets won't be as bearish, right? Maybe prices won't go down as much. And I mean, if you think about it, the amount of people, myself included, that just want to buy Bitcoin every time I get the chance, and every single drop there is, 10, 20, 30% drop, I start salivating and I want to buy more. There's a lot of people like me out there, like you. I'm sure many of you watching are the same type, where it's like, hey, if the price drops 20%, 30%, I'm putting a lot of money in. That's the same boat. We're in the same boat. And the more people that are like that, the less dips we're going to get, because they're going to just be bought up. And we've already been seeing that. The bear market so far, the little drops we've been getting just get bought up even quicker than ever before. And it's crazy because it takes even more capital than ever now, because it's the most valuable it's ever been. You need more money to do that. And it's still able to do that. And that's only going to continue, right? It's like a snowball effect. But we are seeing, one of the reasons Bitcoin isn't pumping is because whales are selling it. The average holdings for entities between 100 Bitcoin to 10,000 Bitcoin, which are considered whales, dropped to just a little under 500 Bitcoin, which is the lowest that it's been in 2018, meaning that larger wallets have been selling at levels we haven't seen in about 7 years, basically. But once some of that sell pressure subsides, which direction is it likely we're going? Up. Very likely. Now, a couple things I want to talk about as well is that the entire altcoin market, if we really kind of zoom in here, I have no doubt that in just about a month or so, we are going to be begging, everyone is going to be begging to have gotten into to altcoins at these levels. I've actually just opened up some trades today because I'm pretty bullish. If they get creamed, then I'll open some more, but I'm kind of like hunting for really good entries right now, specifically because of two charts. This chart, absolutely wild to me. This is the clearest. It's the simplest chart, but it's so clear. I think that soon we are going to be doing this, and people are going to be saying to themselves, oh, I wish I would have gotten in here. They're going to be buying in here, 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 but they're going to be saying, I wish I would have, got it here. Why? Well, right now, are people excited? Are people telling you, like, Are people texting you like your grandma, your uncle saying, hey, have you heard about this crypto stuff? You should get in. Or you heard about this? It's going to go up. No, people still, the sentiment is awful. You can gauge that a lot of different ways. A lot of them are public. I have a private way of gauging that, which is a social media channel, which I have here. And my experience, I can tell you, the sentiment is bad. People are not like jumping up and down like, yippee, it's crypto time. I mean, I am, and some of you are, but like 99% of the world is not. They're just not excited about alts because they've not done well. But here we are. Look at the structure of this. We see dominance, as I've highlighted many, many times. Dominance is going to, in my opinion, have a sharp drop, just like back in 2020, 2021, and all the way back, even bigger in 2016, 2017, or really actually beginning like a couple weeks into 2017. We're going to see that. And when that happens, this chart's going to explode as well. Ethereum, I mean, look at the last two tops Ethereum has had. All right, we have right here back in 2017. Look at the RSI, how overextended it got up to about 96, signaled the top basically. It actually ran up a couple months later, but it had bearish divergence at that point where we have the RSI high and then the high, but then a higher high and a lower high on RSI. Same thing here actually. We were up at about 95 on the RSI when Ethereum got to its previous all-time highs, and then it exploded up to about almost 5K. But it was making lower highs on the RSI. Here we are. We have not put anything anywhere near the 90s yet. This is, you can see, as I just pointed out, but up here is where on the RSI we should be signaling that like, hey, this is where it should be when we should be expecting a top, and we're not anywhere near that, right? So that's one thing. Look at the RSI. The price will probably, the price will likely be like this when we actually see the RSI signaling, okay, it might be overheated. And even then, as I just pointed out, there's like RSI tops out, and then the price has gone even higher than that, and then there's bearish divergence, and then that's when ultimately it tops out, meaning, we could just hit levels that we really are not expecting here. But basically RSI is not signaling anything that ETH is anywhere close to being topped out. In fact, right at this very second, it is just sitting at its previous all-time high. Like right there, like it's gone up maybe like 1% from all-time highs, where in the past it's been hundreds of percent. I think that we still have a little bit to go. And we look at Bitcoin as well, especially on the short term. I'm really curious to see if we can get above the 21-day moving average at about 113,000. The 50-day is about 115. So it's kind of this window. 113 to 115 is a big make or break area. We're right there. Maybe by the time you're watching this, we're, doing something. Maybe we're above it. Maybe we'll get rejected. The weekly, so far, we're getting a picture perfect bounce here. Okay, when you line these up, you have the altcoins looking like they want to completely erupt. Mainly Ethereum as well, looking like it wants to completely erupt. Bitcoin holding on its 21-week moving average, which is also just good. You could even say things couldn't look any bigger as well. I mean, we do see the S&P is flat today, up a little bit. NASDAQ is up about 0.5% right now. Dow Jones is down about 0.5% right now. But the US dollar still looks pitiful. I just really think that altcoins are closer than they've been in the last 4 years to a big pump. And, pretty much every day that we're sitting right here is one last opportunity for you. Because in my strong opinion, just my opinion, once we really get above this for Ethereum, I mean, it's kind of crazy that Ethereum and the total 2 chart look so identical in terms of just sitting right at those previous all-time highs from 4 years ago. Here back in 2021, back, for ETH, here in 2021 for altcoins. It's too perfect. I'm salivating looking at this chart. I'm so ready. I just think that there's going to be a time. It could be tomorrow. It could be a week from now. It could be 2 months from now. But we're going to be up here. And people are going to be shooting themselves in the foot thinking, this was so easy. So easy. How did I not see this? But that's the thing. People, I don't know. People are just so beaten down from the fact that it's taken longer than it has in the past that they just don't think it's possible. And I think that that's probably the biggest mistake, in my opinion. But get signed up with Femex, BITUNIX, or BYBIT below if you want to buy altcoins, Bitcoin, or trade. Without further ado.